Hello everyone, Mr. Newman here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to use the graphing calculator as a tool for this part. And if you notice this page, we did this in class a few days ago, I'm going to show you guys how to do number 9 from page 118. Alright, so if you want to get out your textbook, that's great. You probably don't have it though because it's probably at the classroom. You can just write this down on a blank sheet of paper and answer this question there. So I'm going to do number 9 right there. You can do any of these. You could do number 10, number 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16. They're all done the same way. It's just a matter of typing it into the calculator. And you notice what it says. It says use a graphing calculator. So we need to talk about this for just a moment. I've noticed not everyone has a graphing calculator, or not everyone is bringing them to class. From now on, you should always bring your graphing calculator to class, okay? On a quiz, you may not use your phone as a calculator. Also, you may not use Mr. Newman's calculator. He will not lend you a graphing calculator, mostly because he doesn't have a graphing calculator to lend you. So please, 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 always bring your graphing calculator to class, especially on quiz days. And no, you can't share one with a friend either because they will have just typed in the answers. So, if you do not have a graphing calculator, remember you can rent them from the school for $25. If money is an issue, please come talk to me. And you should have a graphing calculator. That is a requirement of this course. All right, now that I've shared that, what we're going to do is we're going to look for when x equals 3, what f of x is equal to, what the output is equal to when the input is 3. So let's go to our graphing calculators. At this time, I need you to grab a graphing calculator. If you do not have one, one of the things you can do just for practice, again, you can't use this on a quiz, but just for practice, you can, if you have an Android, look up this app, Wabbit Emu. I know it sounds silly, but it is an emulator for Android apps, and that's actually what I use to take screenshots here. So you can see it works just fine, at least when you're at home or when you're in class and you're not taking a quiz, you can use your phone as a graphing calculator. However, you will need one because for quizzes you may not use your phone. All right, so we're going to plug x equals 3 into that. Again, if you don't have a graphing calculator, you could do this, plug 3 into that function, and you could figure out what it's equal to. However, it takes a lot more time, and you are definitely at a big disadvantage if you do not have a graphing calculator. So, on your graphing calculator, you turn on your graphing calculator with the on button, and what you're going to do is you're going to first press the y equals. This is how you graph stuff. You should get remember, y equals is the same as f of x equals for our purposes. You should get this screen right here where it says y1 equals, y2 equals, y3 equals. Each of these are equations that we can graph as long as we have y all by itself, or f of x all by itself. If you see f of x, you can type it in like y equals, just the same. Now, what we want to type in y equals 1/3 x minus 2. That's from the textbook. That is number 9 there. So I need to type in 1/3 x. One of the things you can do with the newer calculators is if you press alpha and then y equals, you notice how the alpha is green? That means it's going to trigger that F1 right there, which is green. The F1 in this screen is actually the fraction section, and if you notice, we want that first one, n over d, or numerator over denominator. So I'm going to press enter to activate it. When you press enter, you should get something that looks like this on the right here. You get a little box over a box, and that's a good little trick to remember if you ever need a fraction. It's alpha y equals enter. Now, once you press that, if you do not have one of these fancy schmancy new calculators, and you have an old one, like the one I grew up with, then what you need to do is you're going to need to type the fraction a different way. You need to use parentheses anytime you have a fraction. So, first thing you're going to do is press left parentheses, 1, then divide, that's going to make a fraction symbol, 3, and then close the parentheses. This is the same as typing 1/3 on the fancy schmancy new calculators, but you have to know how to use parentheses, and that divide is the same as the fraction bar. So let's type it in. You type in 1, and you notice you have to press right or down to get down to the denominator. Make sure that it looks like this. Don't have your x in the denominator or somewhere else. 1/3 x minus 2, and that black square is just my blinking dot that was blinking when I took the screenshot. What we're going to do is now you're going to press the graph button. That's on the top right of your calculator. Don't worry if your graph does not look like this. If it doesn't, it probably means someone used your calculator for something else, or you are borrowing a calculator. If it doesn't look like that, but it is graphing, what you can do is you can press zoom and then 6, and it should change to make it go from -10 to +10 on the x and the y axis. And you should get a graph that looks like that. If it doesn't look like that, check your equation again. And if your graph is not graphing at all, you might need to share your calculator with Mr. Newman and let him fix it for you. So our graph looks like this, but you notice what happened is we don't see any numbers here. We could kind of guess what the number would be when we plug in x equals 3. It looks like it would be right about here, but we don't know exactly for sure. So what we need to do is we're going to use the calculator to get an exact value. First, you're going to press trace. That's right next to graph. And you notice what happens on here is that, first of all, a little dot comes up. That's tracing what point we're looking at right now. The other thing that comes up are these two numbers here, x equals 0 and y equals -2. Those are the coordinates for our point. So 0, -2 is the point that's graphing. Now you can move right and left by pressing the right arrow button, the left arrow button. It'll move it right and left, but chances are you can't get it exactly on x equals 3. So the trick for that is to know you can press 3. If you press 3, notice what pops up. X equals 3 pops up, and it wants you to calculate where 3 is. Notice you have to have pressed trace first before you can press it, otherwise that won't work. After you've pressed 3, you notice that x equals 3, so we're plugging in 3 on the graph. Then you can press enter, and voila, you should get something that looks here on the left. We just move the little spidery thing over to the point where x equals 3. Notice if x equals 3, then y equals -1. So the answer to our question, what is the output when x equals 3? The answer is -1. Another way to get this, and this is helpful if you need to make tables, is to press the table button. Table is not a button on its own. You need to press second, okay? So notice second is blue. That's a way to access any of the blue buttons on the calculator. They're the menus that are right above the buttons themselves. So notice up there, table is right above graph. So if you press second graph or second table, you get this up here. And you can see, look at that. There's a table. When the input is 3, then the output is -1. And that's another way of getting the output when the input is 3. All right. What I would recommend is trying to do number 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You can, here, I'll go back here so you can pause the video if you want to try some of these right here. Try lots of those and make sure you get a feel for what you're plugging in, what the input is, and just get a hang of it. The more you practice with the calculator, the better you'll get, and the more it'll become second nature. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.